The 54th session of the Senate in the third regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Sani Angara will lead the chamber in prayer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear Lord our God, as we receive the blessings that you have intended for us, we pray for a journey not without challenges, but a journey that strengthens and enables us to pass down through generations the riches and resources, the knowledge and skills, and the values that will help our nation grow. Pinapupurihan ka namin, Panginoon, sa pagbibigay halaga at pagpapatnubay sa aming layuning magsilbi sa bayan. Higit pa sa pagbuo ng batas at pagtuklas sa katotohanan na hinihingi ng aming propesyon. Hinihiling din namin ang inyong patuloy na pagkakaloob ng dagdag na talino at ibayong lakas ng kalooban upang aming may paglaban ang mga mahihina at naaapi. Naway ang aming pananalig ang gumabay sa aming trabaho, tumupad sa aming tungkulin na may pagmamahal at maging matatag dahil ikaw ang aming sandigan. We are grateful for your desire to grace us exceedingly and abundantly, and we are most thankful. In Jesus' name we pray, Amen.
Amen. With the permission of the chamber, the chair declares a 1-minute suspension. third reading for the wrong 12, di ba? Alvin. The session is resumed. The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Hunasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Smeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 senators present. There are only 21 available senators. The chair therefore declares the presence of a quorum. The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journals of the 38th session, November 23, 24, and 25, 2015, and the 53rd session, Monday, February 1, 2016, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Here none. Approved.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 3088.
Consideration of Senate Bill 3088 is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting into the journal and record the whole text.
The Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 3088, an act amending pertinent laws on the retirement benefits and pension of the uniformed personnel of the uniformed services and providing funds therefore.
Mr. President, copies of the measures approved on second reading were distributed to the members of the Senate last January 27, complying with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote, Mr.
The
President.
Secretary will call the roll call.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S., Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 3088 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 1618.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of Senate Bill 1618 is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting into the journal and record the text.
The Secretary is directed to do so.
Senate Bill number 1618, an act requiring business establishments to give exact change to consumers.
Mr. President, copies of the measures approved on second reading were distributed last January 28, complying with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S., Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 1618 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 844.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of Senate Bill 844 is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 844, an act declaring the Balete Pass in Santa Fe, Nueva Vizcaya as a national shrine to be known as the Balete Pass National Shrine.
Copies of the measure, as approved on second reading, were distributed last January 27, complying with the 3-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill number 844 is hereby, House Bill 844 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5953.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the body, may we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5953, an act renaming the Philippine Public Safety College Regional Training School 7, PPSCRTS 7, in Consolacion, Province of Cebu, into the Camp Jesse M. Robredo Regional Training Center 7, the National Police Training Institute, Philippine Public Safety College.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5953 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 2297.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the body, may we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to insertion into the journal and record?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 2297, an act changing the name of Casibo National Agricultural School, being administered by the Technical Education and Schools Development Authority, TASDA, in Barangay Pudi, Municipality of Casibo, Province of Nueva Vizcaya, to Nueva Vizcaya Polytechnic Institute.
Mr. President, copies of the measures approved on second reading were distributed to the members last January 27, complying with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 2297 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 1847.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the body, may we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 1847, an act changing the name of Alcantara National Trade School to Romblon National Institute of Technology.
Mr. President, copies of the measure were distributed January 27, complying with the 3-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 1847 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5873.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting the journal and record the whole text?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5873, an act changing the name of Juan Lumosad Memorial National High School, Monte Alegre, Annex in Barangay Monte Alegre, Municipality of Aurora, Province of Zamboanga del Sur, to Monte Alegre National High School.
Mr. President, copies of the measure were distributed to the members last January 27, complying with the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5873 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5568.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5568, an act renaming the Milagros School of Fisheries, popularly known as the Masbate School of Fisheries in the municipality of Milagros, province of Masbate, as the Masbate Institute of Fisheries and Technology.
Mr. President, we've complied with the Constitution, the 3-day rule. Move that we approve on third reading. Roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.I.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5568 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 3819.
3819.
Sorry?
38 House Bill 3819.
5863.
Irosin North High School.
5863 is the next in line, Mr. Majority Leader. Are we skipping this or?
We can go back to that after.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
House Bill number 3819, an act converting the Irusin North High School in Barangay Tinampo, Municipality of Irusin, Province of Sorsogon, into a national high school to be known as Irusin North National High School, appropriating funds, therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.I.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 3819 is approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5863.
In order,
May I request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
the Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 5863, an act converting the Hulo Elementary School in Barangay Hulo, City of Mandaluyong, into an integrated school to be known as Hulo Integrated School, and appropriating funds, therefore.
Mr. President, copies of the measure were distributed to the members January 27, complying with the 3-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.I.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
Sino no? 12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5863 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5360.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
I request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill.
House Bill number 834, an act converting the Payatan High School in Barangay Payatan, Municipality of Goa, Province of Camarines Sur, into a national high school to be known as Payatan National High School, and appropriating funds, therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 834 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4917.
Have we considered already House Bill 5360, Mr. Majority Leader?
Yes, I believe so.
I don't think so.
Not yet.
Maybe we just, yeah.
I stand corrected then,
Yes.
Mr. President. I move that I withdraw my earlier motion, and I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5360.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5360, an act converting into an independent national high school to be known as the Dupax del Norte National High School, the Dupax del Norte National High School Poblacion Annex in Barangay Poblacion of Malasin, Municipality of Dupax del Norte, Province of Nueva Vizcaya, and separating it from its mother school, the Dupax del Norte National High School in Barangay Lamo, Municipality of Dupax del Norte, Province of Nueva Vizcaya, hereinafter renamed the Lamo National High School, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 9779 and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, copies of the measure were distributed to the members last January 27, complying with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero-S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
12 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5360 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4917.
In order,
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 4917, an act converting the Bentuco High School in Barangay Bentuco, Municipality of Gubat, Province of Sorsogon, into a national high school to be known as Bentuco National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
With the permission of the chamber, we declare 1 minute recess.
Pinag-double check ko lang.
Roll call votes of 4917. Yeah, did that. Did. Oh, yeah, okay. Session is resumed. Before we proceed, okay, the Majority Leader.
Mr. President, we were about to vote on House Bill 4917, converting the Bentuco High School in Barangay Bentuco, Gubat, Sorsogon, into a national high school. There is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Villa, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 4917 is approved on third reading. Make it of record that Senators Escudero and Grace Poe did not take part. Similarly, in House Bill number 5568 and House Bill 3819, Senator Escudero did not cast his vote. Please proceed.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 6212.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 6212, an act converting the Tarlac College of Agriculture, TCA, in the municipality of Camiling, province of Tarlac, into a state university to be known as the Tarlac Agricultural University, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we have complied with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Villa, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative vote, no abstention. House Bill 6212 is approved on third reading. Make it of record that Senators Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4632.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 4632, an act converting the Judge Jose de Venecia Sr. Memorial National High School in Barangay Bolosan, City of Dagupan, Province of Pangasinan, into a National Technical Vocational High School to be known as Judge Jose de Venecia Sr. Technical Vocational Secondary School, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Villa, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 4632 is approved on third reading with the notation that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5574.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5574, an act converting the Salioc National High School in Barangay Salioc, Municipality of Natonin, Mountain Province, into a National Technical Vocational High School to be known as Salioc National Technical Vocational and Skills Training High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
There is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Villa, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5534 is hereby approved on third reading. Reflect on the record the fact that Senators Escudero and Poe did not take part.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5573.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5573, an act converting the Sadanga National High School in Barangay Poblacion, Municipality of Sadanga Mountain Province, into a National Technical Vocational High School to be known as Sadanga National Technical Vocational and Skills Training High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetuano, Alan, Peter, Companya, Ruiz, Cayetano, Piaz, Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5573 is hereby approved on third reading. Make of record that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5960.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 5960, Anak converting the Lakeview Elementary School and Pedro A. Diaz High School, Lakeview Annex in Barangay Putatan, City of Muntinlupa, Metro Manila, into an integrated school to be known as Lakeview Integrated School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Cayetano, Piaz, Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5960 is approved on third reading with Senator Escudero and Senator Poe not having taken part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5961.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Title, the Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5961, Act separating the Padada National High School Malinaw Extension in Barangay Lower Malinaw, Municipality of Padada, Province of Davao del Sur, from the Padada National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Malinaw National High School of Arts and Trades, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Companya, Ruiz, Cayetano, Piaz, Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 5961 is approved on third reading. The record will reflect that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5384.
In order.
Pwede. Only majority. We request the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 5384, Act separating the Parañaque National High School Dongalo Annex in Barangay Dongalo, City of Parañaque, Metro Manila, from the Parañaque National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Dongalo National High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Companya, Ruiz, Cayetano, Piaz, Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
There are 11 affirmative votes. There are no abstentions. There are no negative votes. House Bill 5384 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5669.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill 5669, Act separating the Digos City National High School, Mati High School Annex in Barangay Mati, City of Digos, Province of Davao del Sur, from the Digos City National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Mati National High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will do so.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Companya, Ruiz, Cayetano, Piaz, Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5669 is hereby approved on third reading. Reflect on the record that Senators Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5366.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5366, an act separating the Parañaque National High School La Huerta Annex in Barangay La Huerta, City of Parañaque, Metro Manila from the Parañaque National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as La Huerta National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5366 is hereby approved on third reading. Make it of record that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5606.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5606, an act separating the Panagaan National High School Paraiso Annex in Barangay Panagaan, Municipality of Mahayag, Province of Zamboanga del Sur, from the Panagaan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Paraiso National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5606 is approved on third reading. Make it of record that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5445.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5445, an act separating the Quezon Panitian National High School Malatgao Extension in Barangay Malatgao, Municipality of Quezon, Province of Palawan, from the Quezon Panitian National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Malatgao National High School, appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5445 is approved on third reading. Spread into the record the fact that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5364.
We declare 1 minute recess with the permission of the Chamber. Session is resumed. We are now on.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5364.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5364, an act separating the Ayala National High School Tulungatong Annex in Barangay Tulungatong, Zamboanga City from the Ayala National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Tulungatong National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes. I'm sorry.
Mr. President, there's compliance with the three-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5364 is approved on third reading. Make it of record that Senator Poe and Senator Escudero did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5363.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5363, an act separating the Tarusan National High School Malihud Extension in Barangay Malihud, Municipality of Batarasa, Province of Palawan, from the Tarusan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Malihud High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S. Cayetano, P.S. Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5363 is hereby approved on third reading. Make it of record that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5386.
In order,
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number House Bill number 5386, an act separating the Lepanto National High School, Palatong Annex in Sitio, Palatong, Barangay Tabio, Municipality of Mangkayan, Province of Benguet, from the Lepanto National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Tabio National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. Move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5386 is hereby approved on third reading. Spread into the record the fact that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5365.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5365, an act separating the Don Pablo Lorenzo Memorial High School, Pasunangka Annex in Barangay Pasunangka, Zamboanga City, from the Don Pablo Lorenzo Memorial High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Pasunangka National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstentions. Senate Bill 5365 is hereby approved on third reading. Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5670.
In order,
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5670, an act separating the Banisilan National High School, Karugmanan Annex in Barangay Karugmanan, Municipality of Banisilan, Province of Cotabato, from the Banisilan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Karugmanan National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5670 is approved on third reading. Senators Escudero and Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5362.
In order,
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5362, an act separating the Dr. Rodolfo B. Pamor Jr. Memorial National High School, Sangay Western High School Annex in Barangay Tinurongan, Municipality of Sangay, Province of Camarines Sur, from the Dr. Rodolfo B. Pamor Jr. Memorial National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Tinurongan National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 6.2 is hereby approved on third reading with Senator Escudero and Senator Poe not taking part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5668.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5668, an act separating Atok National High School Annex in Barangay Camp 30, Kaliking, Municipality of Atok, Province of Benguet from the Atok National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Camp 30 National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5668 is hereby approved on third reading. Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4368.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
House
Secretary,
Bill-
will do so.
House Bill number 4368, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay Camanga, Municipality of Malangas, Province of Zamboanga, Sibugay, to be known as Junicio Lopez Senior National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
There is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution, Mr. President. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 4368 is approved on third reading. Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4290.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 4290, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay Balukbahan, Municipality of Bayog, Province of Zamboanga del Sur, to be known as Balukbahan National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Roll call vote. The Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
There are 11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 4290 is hereby approved on third reading. Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 604.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 604, an act establishing a national science high school in the city of Pasay, to be known as Pasay City National Science High School and appropriating funds therefore.
There is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 604 is approved on third reading. Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 6155.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 6155, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay San Roque, Zamboanga City, to be known as San Roque National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 6155 is approved on third reading. Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5385.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5385, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay Santo Niño, Parañaque City to be known as Santo Niño National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
There's compliance with the 3-day rule, Mr. President, of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Onasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
11 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5385 is hereby approved on third reading. Make of record that Senator Escudero and Senator Poe did not take part in the voting.
Mr. President, before we move on to our next items on the agenda, I move that we acknowledge some of our guests in the gallery. We have with us students, the BS Medical Technology, BS Physical Therapy, BS Nursing, and BS Hotel and Restaurant Management students of San Juan de Dios Educational Foundation Incorporated, headed by Lailani Dones. We also have students from the Senator Renato Compañero Cayetano Memorial Science Technology High School, headed by Dr. George Tizon. Cayetano Sci-Tech High School is one of the top 10 secondary schools in the National Capital Region based on the National Achievement Test results, and the only public school in Taguig City and Pateros who successfully brought home at least 3 gold medals in international mathematics competitions held in Las Vegas 2012, in Hong Kong in 2013, and in Hong Kong again in 2014. I move that we welcome our guests and congratulate them as well, Mr. President.
Our guests are welcome. Their presence is made of record, and we welcome you to the Senate. We extend our congratulations to the students of the Senator Renato Compañero Cayetano Memorial Science High School, and we likewise welcome the students of the BS Medical Technology, BS Physical Therapy, BS Nursing, BS Hotel and Restaurant Management students of the San Juan de Dios Educational Foundation League.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 2955 and House Bill 4990. Copies of the report have been distributed to the members. I move that we consider the said aforesaid Conference Committee report.
Consideration of the measure of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 4990 and Senate Bill 2955 is in order.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for recognition as the sponsor, Mr. President.
The Secretary, the acting majority leader is recognized as the sponsor.
Mr. President, thank you. As a result of the Bicameral Conference on the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration Act, held last January 28 and February 1, 2016, I have the honor to submit a copy of the Conference Committee report with a joint explanation of the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2955, entitled An Act Governing the Operations and Administration of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, and House Bill 4990, entitled An Act Governing the Operations and Administration of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, as my sponsorship speech, and consider this read in toto into the record. So move.
Before we act on the motion, the Chair would like to find out if the matter of the sea-based personnel OFW contribution was considered here.
Yes, Mr. President, as suggested by the presiding officer. We worked with your office to incorporate your amendment.
May we, Chair, be informed where that particular amendment is, if I may?
It is in the section on contributions and memberships, Mr. President. Section 9. There's a last paragraph inserted on page 9, where the OWA shall be allowed to collect a subsequent membership contribution from the member of OFW only after every 2 years from the last membership contribution made.
There is a motion to approve the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 4990 and Senate Bill 2955. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted and approved.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to our colleagues. Mr. President, We are also in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 3002 and House Bill 5299. This is the Farm Tourism Bill. Copies of the report have been distributed to the members. I move that we consider the said Conference Committee report.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 3002 and House Bill 5299 is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Villar, to present the committee report.
Senator Villar is recognized.
Mr. President, your Senate panel of the Bicameral Conference on the disagreeing provision of Senate Bill 3002 and House Bill 5299 on the proposed Farm Tourism Development Act is glad to report that we have come up with a reconciled version. Let me identify the salient features of the reconciled bill. Number one, the Senate version was adopted as the working draft. Number two, on the definition of terms, Section 3F of the House version was edited and adopted as Section 3F of the reconciled bill, to wit, F, accreditation, a certification officially recognizing a farm tourism camp as having complied with the minimum standards for farm tourism. Number 3, on Section 5, creation of the Farm Tourism Development Board. Item D, inclusion of resource productivity and utilization improvement as one area in which farm tourism research and development projects can be focused on. This was taken from Section 5, Item F of the House version. Number 4, on Section 8, Investment Promotion and Financing, the title of the section was amended to read as the Investment Promotion, Financing, and Incentives, and that a new paragraph was added to highlight that there are existing laws in which incentives can be provided to farm tourism operators and practitioners. To wit, farm tourism operators and practitioners may avail of incentives under existing law. This was taken from Section 9 of the House version. Inclusion of number 5, inclusion of the paraphrase Section 10 of the House version as the new Section 10 of the reconciled bill entitled Accreditation of Farm Tourism Camps. This section mandates that the Department of Tourism and the Department of Agriculture to jointly promulgate and enforce the standards for the accreditation of farm tourism camps. Number 6, on Section 13, Institutional and Human Resource Development, taken from Section 5H of the House version, inclusion of an additional activity that will focus on the upgrading of the capability of local government units to promote and develop farm tourism in their jurisdiction, to wit, D, capability building for LGUs in the promotion, development, and sustainability of farm tourism camps and activities. Number 7, lastly, the title of the House version was adopted as the title of the reconciled bill to read as follows: An act providing for the development and promotion of farm tourism in the Philippines. That would be all, Mr. President.
All right.
May I now move that we ratify the reconciled bill as submitted, Mr. President?
There is any objection? Hearing none. The Bicameral Conference Committee report of the disagreeing provision of Senate Bill 3002 and House Bill 3299 is hereby ratified and approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Villar. Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 2999 and House Bill 5911. Copies have been distributed to the members. I move that we consider the said report.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator J.V. Ejercito, to present the report, Mr. President.
Senator J.V. Ejercito is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. As a result of the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Road Speed Limiters Act held last February 1, 2016, I have the honor to submit a copy of the Conference Committee report with a joint explanation on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2999 and House Bill number 5911 as my sponsorship speech, and consider this read in toto into the record. I so move, Mr. President.
There is a motion that the Chamber adopts and ratifies the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provision of Senate Bill 2999 and House Bill 5911. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Mr. President, we are also in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 2968 and House Bill 5525. This is the CMTA, or the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act. I move that we consider the said report.
Consideration of the report is in order.
I move for recognition, Mr. President, to sponsor the said report.
Senator Sani Angara, a sponsor of the measure, is recognized.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as a result of the bicameral conference on modernizing the Customs and Tariff Administration Act last January 20 and 21, 2016, I have the honor to submit a copy of the conference report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 2968, entitled An Act Modernizing the Customs and Tariff Administration, and House Bill 5525, entitled An Act Modernizing the Customs and Tariff Administration. Also submitted is a joint explanation on the disagreeing provisions of the two versions of the bill, which will likewise serve as my sponsorship record, and I would like this considered as read in toto into our records, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none. The bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provision of Senate Bill 2968 and House Bill 5525 is hereby approved and adopted and ratified.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to suspend for 1 minute, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Anti-carnapping, yeah. But if Coco doesn't come, ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2794 under Committee Report 170 pertaining to the new Anti-Carnapping Act.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measures that the sponsor delivered her sponsorship speech last June 3, 2015. I move that we open the period of interpellations.
The period for interpellation is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Poe.
Senator Poe is recognized.
I move that we recognize Senator Tito Soto to interpellate on the measure.
Senator Soto is recognized to interpolate.
What special mentions for me?
1 minute suspension. Oh, yeah, it's a director.
Anong isa? Yung bills?
Okay. Ito. Ito, cheese. Cheese. Session is resumed.
Mr. President,
The majority leader is recognized first.
may we just temporarily suspend consideration of the measure under consideration, which is Senate Bill 2794, Mr. President.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
I think Senator Escudero wishes to make a manifestation. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Escudero is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, upon previous authority given by Senator Grace and in behalf of this representation as well, we would like to manifest that without necessarily reconsidering the approval of the measures that I will be mentioning, that conducting a second vote, we would simply like to manifest our support for the measures earlier approved on third reading by plenary as follows, Mr. President. I refer to the agenda, letter H, letter J, letter M, up to letter JJ on page 6 inclusive.
That's Roman numeral 5, letter J, letter H, letter J,
Letter M
letter
up
M.
to letter double J inclusive, Mr. President.
The manifestation is noted.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2794. The parliamentary status is that Senator Soto will be interpellating the sponsor, Senator Poe.
Senator Soto is recognized on the period of interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do realize the importance of this measure, Senate Bill 2794. This is going to be the new anti-carnapping law. So will my presidential candidate yield to some questions, Mr. President, for my clarification?
It's my pleasure, Mr. President. You're the
Thank you.
top-notcher so far in our Senate race.
Thank you, Mr. President. We want to be clarified as to the term second-hand spare parts. You defined it in page 2, letter I.
Yeah.
We should, well, I believe that we should consider the term is commonly understood to refer to those second-hand spare parts from legitimate sources and not those coming from carnap vehicles. This might cause a confusion. Will you please enlighten us on what you really mean by the usage of this term, second-hand spare parts?
The definition refers to the parts taken from a carnap vehicle used in assembling another vehicle. It is defined here in this was actually proposed by the Highway Patrol Group, and it was patterned from an executive order in a city. They came out with this recommendation because, for example, motorcycles that were carnapped, its engines were installed in boats, Mr. President.
So we are very clear. The second-hand spare parts, kasi sa mga tindahan po may mga second-hand spare parts eh.
Hindi po from
Hindi,
carnap.
na hindi galing sa carnap vehicle, but it will be very difficult to determine at the time of the procurement if it is from a carnap vehicle or not. That is the reason we are asking about this.
We agree, Mr. President. That's why we also made sure that we clearly define that it's from carnap vehicles, if it can be proven that it is such.
All right. All right. Basta maliwanag, Mr. President, that what you mean here are only from carnap vehicles. Now, on Section 3, or in Section 3, your penalty when the owner, driver, passenger, or occupant of the carnap vehicle is killed, no? What is the penalty if the owner, driver, passenger, occupant of the carnap vehicle is raped in the course of the carnapping? You provide for increased penalty when the owner or occupant or passenger is killed, but nothing is mentioned if the person is raped.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, may I read the actual provision that we have?
Yes.
The paragraph, Section 3, paragraph 37. Any person charged with carnapping as penalized herein shall be denied bail when the evidence of guilt is strong, or when the crime of carnapping is committed by criminal groups, gangs or syndicates, or by means of violence or intimidation of any person or persons, or forced upon things, or when the owner, driver, passenger, occupant of the carnap vehicle is killed or raped in the course of the carnapping. And then paragraph 28 of the same section, line 28 of the same section has the penalties.
Yes, what I mean is that you mentioned it in this paragraph, but this pertains to bail, not the penalty. That the carnapper will be denied bail when the evidence of guilt is strong, or then etc., and then either killed or raped in the course of the carnapping. But we're looking for something that would be probably in the first paragraph, the paragraph before that.
Yes, it says here that line 28, any person who is found guilty of carnapping shall, regardless of value of the motor vehicle taken, be punished for not less than 20 years and 1 day and not more than 30 years when the carnapping is committed without violence against or intimidation of persons or force upon things, and by imprisonment for not less than 30 years and 1 day, and not more than 40 years when the carnapping is committed by means of violence against or intimidation of person or persons, force upon things, and the penalty of life imprisonment shall be imposed when the owner, driver, occupant of the carnap vehicle is killed in the commission of the carnapping.
That is what I mean. Do you think you would be able to accept an amendment in this particular line to include rape in the commission of the carnap, or killed or raped in the commission of the carnapping? We're after the protection of women drivers, Madam President. Iba na yung may sword of Damocles sa kanila eh.
Actually, if you want, Mr. President, if the gentleman would want us to reiterate rape also in the previous lines, we will accept it, Mr. President.
Thank you then, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Let me move on then. Section 4. You include a provision that, quote, if the person violating any provision of this act is a juridical person, the penalty herein provided shall be imposed on its president, secretary, and or members of the board of directors or any of its officers and employees who may have directly participated in the violation. Will you please give us an instance or cite an instance where a juridical person may violate this act?
An example, Mr. President, is if there are motorcycle dealers or any dealers who are in connivance with carnappers or car dealers. Another example is the sale of second-hand cars. A corporation or partnership may be engaged in buy and sell, and there are certain directors or partners who knowingly buy carnapped vehicles, knowingly introduce changes or modify the vehicles, then sell the vehicle.
All right. Okay. In the same provision, the officers and members of the board of the corporation may be liable only if they directly participate in the violation. So does it mean that those who did not directly participate but took part in the commission of the offense by acting as conspirator or accomplice will be penalized?
Accomplices and accessories can only be penalized in the revised penal code, Mr. President. Only the ones that have direct participation, knowledge, or their accessories to the crime will be penalized.
But not here. Or kasama. You are pertaining to that. Access.
1 minute suspension, Mr.
Yes,
President.
thank you. Yeah, please. The key phrase is directly participate. Gusto lang namin malinawan what we mean by directly participate.
Upon motion of Senator Poe, 1 minute suspension.
1 minute suspension. They are direct accessories.
So the matter now of the bill on the floor, the Senate Bill 43-2, which is introduced by way of committee amendments as a substitute bill and in substitution of Senate bill. Therefore, the period for interpellation is enough.
Mr. President,
Session is resumed.
I would like to make a correction with regards to the interpretation. They will, I should have said, they will be penalized if they are accessories and accomplices.
All right, thank you. I am clarified, Mr. President.
No. Okay.
On Section 7, what is the penalty to be imposed in violation of Section 7 of this bill? You state kasi in Section 7, moreover, it shall be unlawful for any person or employee who willfully encodes in the registry motor vehicles a non-existing vehicle or without history, new identity of already existing vehicle or double/multiple registration, kambal of vehicle, because nothing follows after the said statement. So,
yes, Mr. President, they will be penalized under Section 4, acts committed in furtherance or concealment of carnapping. Any person who violates any provision of this act and in furtherance or concealment of the crime of carnapping shall be punished with imprisonment of 6 years up to 12 years and a fine equal to the amount of the acquisition cost of the motor vehicle engine, or any other part involved in the violation, provided that if the person violating any provision of this act is a juridical person, the penalty herein provided shall be imposed on its president, secretary, and or members of the board of directors or any of its officers and employees who may have directly participated in the violation.
May I call your attention to Section 7?
Saan ba dito? Meron ba dito? Sasabihin ko ngayon. Mr. President, of significance, kambal is a term introduced by Senator Lapid for multiple registrations, Mr. President.
So what is the penalty for violation of Section 7, Mr. President?
It is actually in Section 4.
It's in Section 4.
6 years up to 12 years and a fine equal to the amount of the acquisition cost of the motor vehicle or the engine or any other part involved in the violation.
Okay, you mentioned Section 4. Let me go back to Section 4. You provide penalties if committed by a public official or employee in Section 4, no? However, yung penalty of forfeiture of benefits is not among the penalties provided. Forfeiture of benefits is usually attached to crimes or offenses that are considered grave misconduct committed by a public official or employee. Should we not include this also, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, so that the law will have teeth to deter criminal activities.
All right, I'll propose that in the period of amendment, Mr. President. The violation of Section 7, mayroon, ha? Okay. Section 8, you have a presumption stated, no, in Section 8. It says, a motor vehicle engine block or chassis not registered with the LTO shall be presumed as a carnap vehicle. an untaxed imported vehicle or a vehicle proceeding from illegal sources unless proven otherwise and shall be confiscated in favor of the government. May we be enlightened on the reason for the presumption?
It's a presumption, Mr. President, that if the individual cannot present registration of the vehicle, then this vehicle does not belong to him.
Carnap tito. That is the presumption.
That he does not own it, Mr. President.
No, I just want to be clarified. I am in favor, Mr. President. Mas gusto ko yung maikpi tayo dito. All right. Let me move on also. Section 13. Just one or two more points. Section 13 requires motor vehicle clearance from the PNP before the Philippine Ports Authority allows the loading of the same in all inter-island and international shipping vessels. There are several exempted vehicles. Except cargo trucks, other trucks carrying goods. LTFRB accredited public utility, other model carrying foodstuff and dry goods.
Which one? This one?
However, what if private vehicles that regularly board shipping vessels is not included in the exemption? Like yung madalas na isinasakay naman ng Roro, ganyan. Or ano, okay yan. Hindi na kaya, if they're not included in the exception, they must have a permit.
Yes, Mr. President. This
They
is
must have
actually
clearance from PNP.
yes. This was recommended by the HPG, but we will also include.
Okay, gusto nila
We
may
will
PPO.
address. We will address this in an amendment. As we submit the one that's included by recommended by Senator Drilon.
All right. Finally, Section 20, there is a budget requirement for the grant of rewards in formats, ano? Is this in the GAA or shall we provide for it?
Not yet, Mr. President, but hopefully it will be part of the GAA in the future, so that at least it will encourage also those that have knowledge of such illegal acts to come forward.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much for accommodating my questions. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, there are no other members who wish to interpellate. I move that we close the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation is terminated without any objection.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period for committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is in order.
No committee amendments. Meron.
No committee amendments, Mr. President. I move to close the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is terminated.
I move to open the period for individual amendments, Mr.
Period for
President.
individual amendments is in order.
I believe Senator Soto has a few, Mr. President. I move to be
Senator
recognized.
Soto is recognized on the period of individual amendments.
One minute suspension, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Ano? Okay, sabihin ko muna ako. This is a substitute, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
This is a substitute legislation, and allow me to submit my individual amendments, which are reflective of the recommendations given by the Senate President, SP Drilon, and Senator Vicente Soto. Section 3, carnapping penalties, page 2,
Hold
lines...
on. Hold on, I'll get my copy of Please proceed, Senator Paul.
Okay, sir.
Page.
Page 2, lines 37 to 38.
Please proceed.
Delete the phrase, as penalized herein shall be denied bail when the evidence of guilt is strong.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Page 2, line 41. After the words, in the course of carnapping, replace the period with a comma and insert the words, shall be denied bail when the evidence of guilt is strong.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Now, let me read, Mr. President, Section 3, carnapping penalties. Carnapping is the taking with intent to gain of a motor vehicle belonging to another without the latter's consent or by means of violence against or intimidation of persons or by using force upon things. Any person who is found guilty of carnapping shall, regardless of the value of the motor vehicle taken, be punished by imprisonment for not less than 20 years in 1 day and not more than 30 years when the carnapping is committed without violence against or intimidation of persons or force upon things, and by imprisonment for not less than 30 years in 1 day and not more than 40 years when the carnapping is committed by means of violence against or intimidation of persons or force upon things, and the penalty of life imprisonment shall be imposed when the owner, driver, or occupant of the carnapped motor vehicle is killed in the life imprisonment. I repeat. And the penalty of life imprisonment shall be imposed when the owner, driver, or occupant of the carnapped motor vehicle is killed or raped in the commission of the carnapping. Yeah. Any person charged with carnapping or when the crime of carnapping is committed by criminal groups, gangs or syndicates, or by means of violence or intimidation of any person or persons or forced upon things, or when the owner, driver, passenger, or occupant of the carnapped vehicle is killed or raped in the course of the carnapping, shall be denied bail when the evidence of guilt is strong.
For the record, the chair expresses his reservation on the penalties because this could be disproportionate to the value of the property being carnapped. But we just state of the record our reservation on the
Noted,
proportion.
Mr. President.
Yes, we just manifest that of record.
On Section 4,
I'm sorry. Any objection to the amendment proposed by the sponsor? Any objection? Hearing none. Approve. Record the abstention of the chair on this particular issue.
Section 4, page 2, line 3, in the sections titled, delete the words acts committed in furtherance or. Page 2.
Wait, let's do it one by one. There's a proposed
Page
amendment.
2, I repeat,
On page-
Mr. President.
Yes.
Page 2, line 3.
Delete the words acts committed in furtherance or. Any objection? Hearing none. Approve.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Page 2, line 43, in the sections titled,
What do we do with the previous motion which we approved? Do we reconsider? And yes, Senator Soto.
Move to withdraw the previous amendment, Mr. President.
There was already an approval, so we reconsider the approval.
Yes, move to reconsider, Mr. President.
The approval of the amendment reconsidered.
Yes, I move to withdraw the motion because I think the sponsor was pertaining to line 43, not line 3.
What does the sponsor say?
I agree, Mr. President.
Withdrawn.
Thank you.
So now what is the amendment proposed, or what page and what line?
On page 2, line 43,
Page 2, line 43. Please proceed.
in the section's title, delete the words acts committed in furtherance or.
The amendment is delete acts committed in furtherance or.
Yes, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Now, page 2, line 44, delete the phrase, any person who violates any provisions of this act and in furtherance or concealment of the crime of, and replace with, any person who conceals.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Section 4 shall now read as follows. Any person who conceals carnapping shall be punished with imprisonment of 6 years up to 12 years and a fine equal to the amount of the acquisition cost of the motor vehicle engine, or any other part involved in the violation, provided that if the person violating any provision of this act is a juridical person, the penalty herein provided shall be imposed on its president, secretary, and or members of the board of directors or any of its officers and employees who may have directly participated in the violation. Any public official or employee who directly commits the unlawful acts defined in this act or is guilty of gross negligence of duty or connives with or permits the commission of any of the said unlawful acts shall, in addition to the penalty prescribed in the preceding paragraph, be dismissed from the service and shall be permanently disqualified from holding public office.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Section 6, page 3, lines 22 to 32. Delete the entire...
Mr. President,
Sorry. Yes, Senator Soto is recognized.
anterior amendment, Mr. President, before the section 6, so that
Please
we can-
proceed.
Yes. Going to back to page 2, line 55 of the just recently approved section, Mr. President. Line 55, after the word service, insert a comma and his benefits forfeited.
Accepted, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We shall now proceed to page 3, lines
22
to
to
32.
32. Delete the entire section B.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Section 4 shall now read as follows.
What?
I'm sorry,
What? What section?
Section 6.
Section 6, yes.
Registration of motor vehicle engine, engine block, and chassis. Remove A. The new section 6 will be within 1 year upon approval of this act, every owner or possessor of unregistered motor vehicle or parts thereof in knockdown condition shall register before the LTO the motor vehicle engine, engine block, and chassis in the name of the possessor or in the name of the real owner, who shall be readily available to answer any claim over the registered motor vehicle engine, engine block, and chassis. Thereafter, all motor vehicle engines, engine untaxed, importation, or coming from illegal source shall be confiscated in favor of the government.
So, just to clarify, sections 6A A, which is lines 12 to 20 on page 3, will be retained.
Yes, Mr.
And
President.
paragraph B of section 6, which is from line 22 to line 32 on page 3, is deleted.
Yes, Mr.
All
President.
right? Sorry? Does the sponsor confirm that? Yes, Senator Soto?
Yes, but there is an amendment in the last two lines of letter A.
Is there an amendment? I did
19, 20. Lines 18, 19, and 20. I heard the sponsor.
Yes, Mr. President. I think I just missed line 18. Thereafter, all motor vehicles, thereafter, all motor vehicle engines, engine blocks, and chassis not registered with the LTO shall be considered as a carnap vehicle, an untaxed importation or coming from illegal source, and shall be confiscated in favor of the government. I just read that for clarity, Mr. President.
Yes. That is not being amendment, Senator Soto.
Yeah.
I'm reading exactly.
Yes, I'm reading the exact, but I heard something else earlier. I
No.
thought there was an amendment.
I think it's getting late, Mr.
I'm sorry,
President.
Mr. President. Thank you.
So, just
Thank you,
for
thank
the
you,
record,
thank you, Mr.
and
President.
to clarify once more, Section 6 from lines 12, Section 6, lines 12 to 20 is retained as presently worded.
Yes, Mr. President.
And
Retained.
the second paragraph, starting with line 22 to line 32 on page 3, is being deleted.
Yes, Mr.
All
President.
right, with that reflect on the record.
Section 16, Mr. President.
Section
16,
16, yes,
page 5,
page 5,
lines 4 to 9.
lines 4 to 9.
Delete section 16.
There is a motion, the amendment is to delete section 16. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
I would like to read the rationale behind this. The inability to present receipts and registration should be tantamount to a prima facie evidence of carnapping. At most, the rider's failure to present the ORCR should simply give rise to an imposition of penalty.
Yeah. Just to clarify, the inability to present the receipts and registration should not be tantamount to a prima facie.
I'm sorry, should not be
Yes,
tantamount.
yes. That's the rationale of this.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. It
Evidence of carnage.
should not be tantamount.
Yes. Yes. That's the rationale. All right. The rationale is made of record.
Okay. I just want to be very sure. The inability to present receipts and registration should not be tantamount
To a
prima facie evidence of carnapping. At
Yes.
most, the rider's failure to present the ORCR should simply give rise to an imposition of penalty.
Yes. Reflect that on the record.
I would like to move that the section of that the sections and provisions of the bill be renumbered accordingly, Mr.
All
President.
right. Sorry, numbered. Majority Leader, there are no more. The period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, no other senators who wish to amend. I move to close the period for individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill 2794 under Committee Report 170.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill number 2794 is hereby approved on second reading. Reflect in the record the abstention of the chair on the ground that the penalties to the chair's opinion is a little harsh and may not be disproportionate to the value of the crime, value of the property subject of the crime. Yes, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2794.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2785 under Committee Report 149. This is the Rights of Internally Displaced Persons Act.
In objection, hearing on consideration, Vice President order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status is that we are in the period of interpellations. I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Gingona.
Senator Gingona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may we one manifest that the committee has considered the very important observations of the Senate President and Senator Soto during the interpellations last June 1, 2015. Senate Bill 3132, a new bill has been filed and referred to the committee. During the period of amendments, we intend to introduce the text thereof as an amendment by substitution to Senate Bill 2785. Thank you, Mr. President.
The manifestation is duly noted.
Mr. President, there being no members who wish to interpellate, I move that we close the period of interpellations.
Before the Chair acts on that, the Chair notes that this is an entirely new bill because what is now, what is intended to be done is to substitute Senate Bill 2785 with Senate Bill 3132. May the Chair find out when our colleagues can ask questions? What bill are we referring to when we close the period of interpellation? Because we haven't even examined.
But it's the bill as on the floor right now, Mr. President, I would assume.
Yes,
Mr. The bill on the floor is Senate Bill 2785.
Yes, Mr. President. Copies of Senate Bill 3132 have already been distributed, and we will give ample time to our colleagues to study the new Senate Bill 3132 so that they could ask questions during the period of amendments.
I can appreciate that the procedure will be that we have to approve the committee amendments and the substitute bill when at the appropriate time when it is presented, but I just want to clarify that we are now not closing the period for interpellation on the new measure that is being introduced.
Yes, Mr. President.
On that basis, there is a motion that we close the period of interpellation on Senate Bill 2785. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, I move to open the period for committee amendments.
Committee amendments is in order.
I now move for the period of... yes. With, as earlier manifested, Mr. President, and with the consent of the Senate, for our committee amendment, we propose that we replace the entire text of Senate Bill 2785 from Section 1 until Section 29 with the text of Senate Bill 3132 from Section 1 until Section 26 thereof. I so move, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? The proposed amendment by substitution is hereby approved, and the understanding of the Chair is that there will be a period of interpellation after the amendment. But before we before we act on the motion, Senator Enrile is recognized.
May I be favored with an explanation or a history of the process by which the original bill was reported and substituted by a new bill? Because this is rather unusual. This is the first time that I encountered this kind of a situation in legislative deliberations.
Yes. Ordinarily, I agree with the Senator Enrile. Ordinarily, we introduce the committee amendments and we act on the amendments, and in the course of the amendments, there could be questions raised. In this particular case, the whole bill is being recast.
I think the process should be to return the original bill to the committee for a hearing and bring it back with another committee report.
What does the sponsor can respond if he so wishes.
Mr. President, there has been a precedent. There has been a committee amendment by substitution on the Anti-Terrorism Act previously, and it was approved by the Senate at that time. I'm referring to Senate Bill 2137, which was introduced, which was replaced by Senate Bill number 2187, which is an act to define and punish the crime of terrorism.
Mr. President, I was the sponsor of that bill. I authored that bill.
Yes, Mr. President, that's why I'm citing it.
I don't think there was a substitute bill.
Mr. President, I have a study by the Legislative Parliamentary Counseling Service, and they did cite it as an amendment by substitution.
What happened was Senator Pimentel changed the title of the bill.
Mr. President, I stand by the report of the Legislative Parliamentary Counseling Service.
Can we have, with the permission of the chamber, 1 minute suspension?
suspend consideration of the measure. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status is that we are in the period of committee amendments. In the meantime, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2785.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of Senate Bill 2785 is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 3086 under Committee Report 352. This bill pertains to the proposed Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development, Mr. President.
Before we act on the...
1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended for 1 minute.
Mauna ka na lang, Nan. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 3086 under Committee Report 352. This bill is the proposed Department of Human Settlement and Human Development.
In the consideration of the measure is in order.
Parliamentary status of the measure, Mr. President, is that the sponsor delivered the sponsorship speech last January 19. I move that we open the period of interpellations.
The period of interpellation is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Ejercito.
Senator Ejercito is recognized.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. President. There are no senators
Just
who
a
raised
few points of clarification and spread it on the record. The way the chair understands this bill, this is a consolidation of all the housing agencies presently existing into one department. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. President. Basically, it's the Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development, it's the HUDC, no? And the HLURB combined, and the other housing agencies like NHA would attached agencies would also be included, Mr. President.
Now, will there be additional personnel, or we will be just utilizing the existing personnel and put these agencies under a department?
Mr. President, we will be utilizing the existing personnel, and likewise the budget. We will utilize the budget of HLURB and HUDC for the first year, and then the following year, then we will introduce it in the General Appropriations Act.
Will there be additional personnel when we consolidate these agencies?
None, Mr. President. We will just utilize the existing personnel.
All right. Yes. All right. That's all. We want to spread that into the record. Mr. Majority Leader.
There are no members who have signified their intent to interpolate, Mr. President. I move that we close the period of interpolation.
Any objection? Hearing none. The period for interpolation on Senate Bill 3086 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period for committee amendments.
The period for committee amendments is in order. Senator Ejercito, is there any committee amendment?
Request for suspension for 1 minute.
suspension,
1 minute
Mr. President.
suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, Senator Villar will introduce some amendments tomorrow. So if we can already suspend consideration of the measure for this afternoon.
All right.
So do we close the period of committee amendments, Mr. President?
There are
Because those would probably
amendments which are going to be introduced tomorrow. I do not know what is the nature of that amendment.
Probably
We just have to
individual.
suspend it.
I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 3086 under Committee Report 352.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we transfer Senate Bill 449 under Committee Report 54 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is carried.
I move that we consider Senate Bill 449 under Committee Report 54.
Consideration of Senate Bill 449 is in order.
With the permission of body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 449, an act honoring and granting additional benefits and privileges to Filipino centenarians, declaring the 25th of September as National Respect for Centenarians Day and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Binay to sponsor the measure.
Senator Binay is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I speak before this body as Chairman of the Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development to sponsor Committee Report number 54 regarding Senate Bill number 449 introduced by Senator Ralph Recto, entitled An Act Honoring and Granting Additional Benefits and Privileges to Filipino Centenarians, declaring the 25th of September as National Respect for Centenarians Day and for other purposes. In the early morning of Sunday, 27th of July 2014, the Philippines witnessed the birth of our 100 millionth baby, according to the Commission on Population under the Department of Health. Our population is now 100 million, strong and counting. The life expectancy of Filipinos, according to the World Health Organization, for both male and female are 65 and 72 years respectively. The National Statistical Coordination Board's fact sheet, on the other hand, indicate that the life expectancy of Filipinos is 67.6 and 73.1 years for men and women, respectively. In addition, during the committee hearings I conducted, resource persons from the National Coordinating Monitoring Board of the Department of Social Welfare and Development informed this representation that as of 2012, there is an estimated 7,000 centenarians. They also pointed out that there is a present clamor of centenarians approaching their offices, so this estimation may reach the 8,000 mark. Our present population of 100 million and the 8,000 centenarians translates to only 0.00008%. With this in mind, there is an inconsiderable amount of centenarians and would-be centenarians in our country. These indicate the rarity of Filipinos reaching the age of 100. It is worthy to note, however, that we, as Filipinos, have a culture of taking care and providing for our elders. It is somewhat a voluntary obligation imposed on oneself. Ito po ang isa sa mga napakahalaga, napakaganda at kakaibang katangian nating mga Pilipino. This is also recognized by Article 15 of our 1987 Constitution, which provides that the family has a duty to take care of its elderly members, but the state may also do so through just programs of social security. Tungkulin po ng pamahalaan na pangalagaan ang kapakanan ng mga miyembro ng lipunan, kasama na rito ang kabataan, mga may karamdaman at mahihirap. Ngunit dapat ring pagtuunan ng pansin ang ating mga nakatatanda. Sila po ay buhay na patotoo na kaya nating mapagtagumpayan ang mga pagsubok ng buhay upang marating ang edad na 100 taon. Kung sila po noon ang nagsikap upang maitaguyod ang kanilang mga pamilya at sa kanilang mga di matutumbasang kontribusyon sa lipunan, we must in turn give them the recognition and assistance that they deserve. Let us keep the unique Filipino trait of taking care of our elderly alive. Ipakita po natin sa mga susunod pang henerasyon ang ating paggalang at pangangalaga sa ating mga nakakatanda. The proposed measure has similar version and practices in other jurisdictions. In Ireland, for instance, they have a practice called Centenarian Bounty. This bounty is an award that entitles a centenarian to 2,540 euros, or about 131 pesos, 267 pesos and 2 centavos, with a 51.68 conversion rate of euro to peso, and a congratulatory letter signed by the President on the centenarian's birthday. The Philippine version, on the other hand, proposes for the following. Number 1, felicitation letter from the President of the Philippines to the centenarians. Number 2, centenarians gift in the amount of 100,000. And number 3, declaration of a national respect for Centenarians Day. Layunin po ng panukalang batas na ito na maipadama ang ating pangangalaga sa lahat ng ating centenarians na magsisilbing gabay ng mga susunod na henerasyon tungo sa pamumuhay na may disiplina at pagpapahalaga sa kalusugan. The said gift is not only in recognition of their age, but also a gift that they truly deserve for all their sacrifices and everything they have done for the society as well as their loved ones. By passing an act honoring and granting additional benefits and privileges to Filipino centenarians, we not only care for and honor our elderly, but we celebrate the longevity of human life itself. It is because of the foregoing that I seek the similar support from my fellow senators to pass this measure in the 16th Congress. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Binay, for sponsoring this very timely measure. Just for the record, would the sponsor have an idea how many centenarians do we have in our country?
As of 2015, it's 3,533, Mr. President.
3,000?
533, Mr. President.
Huh? 3,500?
33.
33.
Centenarian.
Yes, 3,533. And for the record, how did we arrive at that number?
Actually, the DSWD has a database
All right.
for Centenarian.
The DSW has a listing.
Yes, Mr. President.
And that is the basis of the identification card that will be issued under the proposed measure, or is there an identification card that will be issued by the Office of the Senior Citizens?
In the Senate version, we don't have that.
Sorry?
In the Senate version, we don't have the identification card, Mr. President.
I join the sponsor in her desire to have this bill passed. And I have no more questions. The chair has no more questions.
Mr. President, Senator Recto is also a co-sponsor, and he moved that his speech, his sponsorship speech, be inserted into the record of the journal. Mr. President.
Senator Recto is not a Centenarian, just for the record.
I don't believe so, Mr. President.
Yes. There is a motion that...
Move to insert his Senator Recto's sponsorship speech into the record.
Included in the record.
Mr. President, in the meantime, I move that in order to give our colleagues time to study the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 449 under Committee Report 54.
This is not a very complicated bill. With the consent of the chamber, the chair suggests to the majority leader that we can consider passing it today. This is a measure that will only benefit 3,500 centenarians. If the sponsor is ready.
Well, we can close. If that's the case, I would move to close the period of interpellations, Mr. President.
The period for interpellation is terminated.
Individual.
May we propose that we proceed with the committee amendments?
Move to open, Mr. President.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 1, line 1, replace the figure 2013 with 2016.
2016.
Yes, Mr. President.
Not 2014.
Not 2014.
Yes.
2016.
It's okay. On the first page, line 1, replace the figure 2013 with 2016. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, delete the entire section 5.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, line 8, after the word annual, replace the phrase Family Week celebration from September 19 to 28, the 25th of September, with Elderly Filipino Week, October 1 to 7, the first Sunday of October.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Renumber the succeeding sections accordingly.
Okay, approved.
And finally, replace the title of the bill to read as follows: An act honoring and granting additional benefits and privileges to Filipino centenarians and for other purposes.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Move to close the period of committee amendments, Mr.
Period for
President.
committee amendments terminated.
Move to open the period of individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is in order.
There are no individual amendments, Mr. President. I move to close the period.
Period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I was reminded by Senator Soto and Senator Osmeña that there is a tradition that we don't approve on second reading on the same day, but they have no objection to approving it tomorrow. So if that's acceptable to the author, then I move to suspend consideration of the measure.
So suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we consider the Conference Committee report on the conflicting provisions of Senate Bill 2987 and House Bill 5713 on the VAT on the raw sugar. Copies have been distributed to the members. I move that we consider the said report.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the Conference Committee report of the disagreeing provision of House Bill 5713 and Senate Bill 2987 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Osmeña, to present the bicameral Conference Committee report.
Senator Osmeña is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 5713 and Senate number 2987 have been after having met and fully discussed the subject matter, hereby reports to their respective houses that 1. The conferees agreed to use the House version as the point of reference for comparison purposes. 2. Section 1 of the bill was based on Section 1 of the Senate version with modification on the definition of raw sugar and raw cane sugar to wit. For this purpose, notwithstanding the processes involved in its production, quote, raw sugar or raw cane sugar, unquote, means sugar whose content of sucrose by weight, in the dry state, corresponds to a polarimeter reading of less than 99.5 degrees, end of quote. The reconciled proviso would make the definition of raw sugar and raw cane sugar clearer. Number 3, paragraph F of Section 1 of the reconciled bill was taken from paragraph F of the House version. Number 4, Section 2, implementing rules and regulations of the Senate version was adopted as Section 2 of the reconciled bill. Number 5, Section 3, the repealing clause of the House version was adopted as Section 3 of the reconciled bill. Number 6, Section 4, separability clause of the Senate version was adopted as Section 4 of the reconciled bill. Number 7, Section 5, effectivity clause of the Senate version was adopted as Section 5 of the reconciled bill. Number 8, finally, the title of the reconciled bill as agreed upon by the conferees will read as follows. An act defining raw sugar or raw cane sugar, amending Section 109A and F of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended and for other purposes. In case of conflict between the statement amendment stated in this joint explanatory note and that of the provisions of the reconciled version of the accompanying conference committee report, the provisions of the latter shall prevail, and that is the extent of the BICAM report, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
I move to adopt, Mr. President.
There is a motion that we adopt the bicameral conference committee report for the disagreeing provision of House Bill 5713 and Senate Bill 2987. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the bicameral conference committee report is hereby adopted and ratified.
Mr. President, I move for the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Message from the House of Representatives, letters from the House informing the Senate that on 27 January 2016, it designated Representatives Tupas Jr., Escudero, Bello III, and Noel as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 5855, an act reorganizing and modernizing the National Bureau of Investigation and providing funds therefore, and Senate Bill 2950, an act modernizing the National Bureau of Investigation, providing funds therefore and for other purposes. Representatives Mendoza, Gatchalian, Yap, Biologo, Noel, Hiccup, and De La Cruz as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 4990 and Senate Bill 2955, both entitled An Act Governing the Operations and Administration of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration. Representative Bello III, Vice Cayetano, as conferee to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 4116, an act strengthening the Balanced Housing Development Program, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 7279, entitled An Act to Provide for a Comprehensive and Continuing Urban Development and Housing Program, establish the mechanism for its implementation and for other purposes, and Senate Bill number 2947, an act strengthening the Balanced Housing Development Program, amending for that purpose Republic Act number 7279 as amended by RA 9397, otherwise known as the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that 27 January 2016, it concurred with the Senate amendments to the following House bills. 216, an act converting the Land Transportation Office Extension Office located in the municipality of Baguio, province of La Union, into a regular LTO district office and appropriating funds therefore. 273, an act converting the Bayawan City Land Transportation Office Extension Office into a regular LTO district office. 540, an act establishing a district office to the Land Transportation Office in the city of Bacoor, Cavite, and appropriating funds therefore. 577, an act establishing a land transportation office in the municipality of Nabunturan, Compostela, Baldi, province, and appropriating funds therefore. 696, an act establishing the Orani Land Transportation Extension Office, Orani Bataan, and appropriating funds therefore. 2095, converting the Land Transportation Office in the municipality of Santa Maria, province of Bulacan, into a regular LTO district office, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. 2188, an act establishing a land transportation office, district office in the city of Baybay, province of Leyte, and appropriating funds therefore. 2592, an act converting the land transportation office, satellite office as district office in District 2, Parañaque City, and providing funds therefore. 4404, an act establishing a district office, the land transportation office in the municipality of Carmona, Cavite, and appropriating funds therefore. 5825, an act establishing a district office of the land transportation office in the province of Sarangani and appropriating funds therefore. And House Bill number 2360, an act establishing a Securities and Exchange Commission office in Bacolod City and appropriating funds therefore.
To the archives.
Committee reports. Committee report number 445, submitted jointly by the Committees on Tourism and Finance on House Bill number 5576, introduced by Representative Romualdo, an act declaring tourism development in areas in the province of Camiguin, organizing the Camiguin Tourism Council, and mandating support for tourism development in the province of Camiguin, recommending its approval with amendments sponsored Senator Lapid.
Calendar for ordinary business.
446, submitted jointly by the Committees on Education and Culture and Finance on House Bill number 2817, introduced by Representative Bagabao, an act separating the Cagasat National High School, Magsaysay Annex and Barangay Magsaysay Municipality of Cordon, province of Isabela, from the Cagasat National High School, converting it into independent national high school to be known as Cordon National High School, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending its approval without amendments. Senator Cayetano Pia,
Calendar for ordinary business.
447, submitted jointly by the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, Finance, and Ways and Means on House Bill number 6144, introduced by Representative Rodriguez R. et al., entitled An Act Establishing the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines, USTSP, providing for the purpose the amalgamation of the Mindanao University, Science and Technology, and the Misamis Oriental State College of Agriculture and Technology, Muscat, and appropriating funds therefore. Recommending its approval without amendment, taking into consideration Senate Bill number 2468, Senator Cayetano Pia, sponsor.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Additional reference to business. Bills on first reading. 3155, an act providing for a procedure for the regular adjustments for inflation of civil monetary penalties as provided in the Penal Code and amount of damages caused by a crime or quasi-delict, by Senator Santiago.
For the Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Laws, before the Secretary reads the next referral, may I suggest that we suspend the reference of business and proceed to the other items on the agenda.
Mr. President, with the consent of the
Majority
body,
Leader.
I move that we transfer House Bill 5576 under Committee Report 445 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none. In order.
Mr. President, I move that we consider House Bill 5576 under Committee Report 445.
Approved.
I move that the Secretary read the title of the measure.
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5576, an act declaring tourism development areas in the province of Camiguin, organizing the Camiguin Tourism Council, and mandating support for tourism development in the province of Camiguin.
Mr. President, in the interest of, I move that for recognition as the sponsor on behalf of Senator Lapid.
Senator Angara is recognized as the sponsor of the measure.
Mr. President, in the interest of time, I move that we insert my sponsorship speech into the record and the journal. I so move, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, the sponsorship speech of Senator Angara is inserted into the records for today's session.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of interpellations.
The period for interpellation is in order.
Mr. President, this is a local bill, largely, to declare tourism development areas, so there are no members who wish to interpellate. I move that we close the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation is terminated.
Mr. President, there are no committee amendments. I move that we close the period of committee amendments.
Period for Committee amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, there are just a number of individual amendments, if I may.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, as an addenda to the omnibus amendment to Section 3 in the committee report, to replace 6 with 8 in the phrase page 2, line 6, and to include the phrase page 3, line 6 after page 2, line 6 and before page 4. So move.
Approved.
On page 8, Section 8, line 21, on the implementing rules and regulations, to delete the phrase provided that the law shall take effect after 60 days with or without the IRR. So move.
Approved.
On page 8, line 22 in Section 9 entitled Appropriations, to delete the entire paragraph and in lieu thereof replace with the following. The DOT, DENR, DPWH, and DOTC shall include in their programs the infrastructure and other development projects to support the Tourism Development Plan of Camiguin. So move.
Approved.
No other individual amendments, Mr. President. I move to close the period for individual amendments.
Before we so close, there are a number of amendments that the chair sees being proposed in the committee report. May the chair know for the record what is this committee amendment being abandoned?
Will the chair accept a omnibus motion to approve them, Mr. President? Or
No, we have to go. So these are committee amendments.
I'll read them individually, Mr. President.
Sorry?
Can we move to?
Can there be 1 minute suspension?
Yes, Mr. President. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, thank you for pointing that out. I'd like to reopen the period for committee amendments. So move.
There is a motion that we reopen the period for committee amendments. Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
Mr. President, if I may, on page 1, section 2, lines 4 and 5, to delete the phrase support tourism as a vehicle for job creation and economic growth and development, and in lieu thereof, replace with the following phrase. Promote a tourism industry that is ecologically sustainable, responsible, participative, culturally sensitive, economically viable, and equitable for local communities. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page 1, section 3, line 10, to change the subtitle Camiguin Tourism Development Areas, and in lieu thereof, replace with the following subtitle to read as Section 3, Scope and Coverage. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 1, line 11, delete the word shall between the words Camiguin and include and replace with the word hereby, and insert the phrase but not limited to between the words include and the. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, line 12, to insert the phrase the following ecotourism sites in its municipalities endowed with natural beauty and historic significance after the word following. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
As an omnibus amendment to section 3 to change all the terms TDAs into ecotourism sites on page 2, line 6, page 4, line 1, page 5, line 6 and 22. So move.
The omnibus amendment is hereby approved.
On page 6, line 27, to delete the word the and replace with the word such.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 7, after line 28, to add a new paragraph to read as follows. E. The functions of the Council shall be harmonized with the functions and responsibilities of the Protected Area Management Board, PAMB, the Protected Area Superintendents, and the Regional Ecotourism Committee to avoid any overlap or conflict. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 8, section 6, line 1, rephrase the title Camiguin Tourism Development Plan to read as Tourism Development Plan of Camiguin.
Approved.
On the same page, section 6, lines 1 to 6, delete the whole paragraph and in lieu thereof, replace with the following paragraph to read as follows. The Tourism Development Plan of the Province of Camiguin shall be incorporated in the DOT's Overall National Tourism Development Plan, NTDP, pursuant to RA 9593, otherwise known as the National Tourism Act of 2009, and be jointly implemented with the local government and of Camiguin Tourism Council, taking into consideration RA number 7586 otherwise known as the National Integrated Protected Areas System Act of 1992, and RA 9072, otherwise known as the National Caves and Cave Resources Management and Protection Act. The DOT may offer technical assistance in terms of development planning, training, and promotions. The concerned LGU, in coordination with the DOT, TIEZA, and DNR, shall delineate well-defined geographic areas within the ecotourism sites and coordinate the integrated development of these sites for the optimum use of natural assets and attractions, as well as existing facilities, provided that said development plan shall ensure the preservation of the ecological balance and natural beauty of the area. The province of Camiguin covers some protected areas. As such, low-impact tourism developments, such as the construction of basic facilities and amenities like comfort rooms, kiosks, picnic areas may be allowed. Mass tourism, high-impact activities, and construction of large infrastructure such as accommodation and games and amusement establishments should be implemented outside the protected areas. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 8, delete section 7 covering lines 7 to 11, then add the whole remaining paragraph covering lines 12 to 16 as the last paragraph under section 6. So move.
Approved.
On the same page 8, line 17, to renumber section 8 as section 7, then delete the words the Secretary of Tourism and in lieu thereof replace with the words the Camiguin Tourism Council.
Approved.
On the same page 8, line 18, insert DOT between the words D and DNR. Then on lines 18 to 19, delete the words the Council. So move.
Approved.
On the same page 8, line 21, insert the phrase provided that the law shall take effect after 60 days with or without the IRR after the word effectivity.
Wasn't that introduced earlier as an individual amendment? Senator Angara?
Well, now we have to introduce it because we removed it in the individual amendments, Mr. President.
All right.
So there's nothing to remove, actually. Anyway, so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On the same page 8, line 22, renumbered section 9 as section 8, then delete the whole paragraph covering lines 22 to 26, and in lieu thereof, replace with the following paragraph to read as follows. The DOT, DNR, DPWH, DOTC, and LGU shall include in its annual investment program, AIP, the implementation of this act, the funding of which will be included in the annual General Appropriations Act. So moved.
Approved.
On the same page 8, line 27, to delete section 10 covering lines 27 to 28. So move.
Approved.
On page 9, delete the phrase from lines 1 to 3.
Approved.
On the same page 9, line 4, renumber section 11 as section 9, then insert the word presidential between the words law and executive. So move. On the same page 9, line 5, insert the phrase contrary to between the words issuances and article or. So move.
Approved.
On the same page 9, lines 5 and 6, delete the words parts thereof that are, then delete the words are hereby repealed or modified, and in lieu thereof, replace with the words shall be deemed amended. So move.
Approved.
On the same page 9, line 8, renumber section 12 as section 10. So move.
Approved.
On the same page 9, line 11, renumber section 13 as section 11. So move.
Approved.
On the title, Mr. President, shall read as follows: An act declaring tourism development areas in the province of Camiguin, organizing the Camiguin Tourism Council, and mandating support for tourism development in the province of Camiguin. So moved, Mr. President.
Approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we close the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is terminated.
Do we reopen the period for individual and close it again, Mr. President? Move that we open the period for individual amendments.
So
Mr.
opened.
President. There are no new individual amendments, Mr. President. I move that we close the period for individual.
There are no additional individual amendments. Upon motion of Senator Angara, the period for individual amendments is likewise terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill 5576 on Committee Report
So
445.
suspended.
Me. Mr. President, with the consent of the body, Tia, you want to? What do you want for first? Ano gusto mo? Which one? What's that? Basic school. Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we transfer Senate Bill 3204 under Committee Report 448 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
I move that we consider Senate Bill 3204 under Committee Report 448.
Sorry, it has not been placed in our calendar for ordinary business. It has not been read. So I don't think that we can even transfer it.
Well, move to suspend consideration of the measure, Mr.
Suspended.
President. Which one?
Ano nangyari?
Which one?
Wala.
Lahat yun? Lahat ng sa kanya? Hindi na ano?
Anong page?
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 29 under Committee Report 38. This is the bill on the anti-age discrimination in employment, Mr. President.
In order.
Anti-age discrimination. Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure that we are in the period of individual amendments, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Pia Cayetano.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized in the period of individual amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I am ready to present the individual amendments.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Senator Cayetano is ready to present the... We are already in the period of individual amendments, Mr.
All right.
President.
Consideration of the measure on individual amendments is in order.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will start. On page 1, line 2, delete 2013 and replace with 2016.
Approved.
On the same page, delete lines 10 to 12.
Approved.
On the same page, line 20 to 21, delete the word older and the phrase with the younger applicants or employees.
Approved.
On the same page, after line 27, insert a new subsection which shall read as A. Contractor refers to any person or entity, including a cooperative, engaged in a legitimate contracting or subcontracting arrangement providing either services, skilled workers, temporary workers, or a combination of services to a principal under a service agreement.
Any objection? Not approved.
And Mr. President, I move that we re-letter the succeeding subsections accordingly.
So relettered.
On the same page, line 29, after the word employer, insert, comma, and the phrase consistent with Presidential Decree number 442, PD 442, or the Labor Code of the Philippines.
Can you read it again, ma'am?
Yes, Mr. President.
Online.
On the same page, line 29, after the word employer, insert comma and the phrase consistent with Presidential Decree number 442, open close parenthesis, PD 442, or the Labor Code of the Philippines.
Any objection? Here none approved.
Thank you. Next item on page 2, line 5, delete the word organization and replace it with employers.
Approved.
Mr. President, I'll go back. I missed an item. On the same page, line 35. That's page 1. Line 35. After the word organization, insert comma and the phrase consistent with PD 442 or the Labor Code of the Philippines.
Approved.
Thank you. On page 2, line 8, delete the term labor contractor and replace it with employment agency or recruitment center.
What line is that?
Line 8, Mr. President. Labor contractor.
Any objection? Here none approved.
On the same page, delete lines 22 to 24 and replace it with Section 5, employers covered. The provisions of this act shall apply to all employers as defined herein. They shall also cover A, officers of the government and all its branches, subdivisions, and instrumentalities; B, officers of all government-owned or controlled corporations and institutions; C, officers of non-profit private institutions or organizations; D, officers of contractors; and E, officers of labor organizations. I submit.
Approved.
On the same page, line 28, after the word or, insert the phrase during the, and after the word hiring, insert the phrase or promotions.
Approved.
On the same page, line 31, after open parenthesis, dole, close parenthesis, insert the phrase and the Civil Service Commission, open parenthesis, CSC, close parenthesis.
Approved.
On the same page, delete line 33 to 36 and replace it with A. Conduct studies and researches to promote employment and retention of persons based on their ability rather than age, to standardize recruitment, hiring, and other related practices that are skill-based, and to furnish such information to employers, labor organizations, and the general public. Submit. On the same page, after line 36, insert a new subsection which shall read as B. Establish guidelines that shall promote an inclusive workplace for all ages in order to maximize work productivity and increase employee commitment. End.
Approved.
Reletter, and I move to reletter the succeeding subsections
So
accordingly.
relettered.
The next item is on the same page, line 38. After the word programs, insert the phrase conduct lectures, seminars, workshops, and other training programs.
Approved.
On the same page, delete the entire Section 8 and replace it with the following. Section 8, prohibition of age discrimination. A. It shall be unlawful for an employer, employment agency, or recruitment center and publisher to 1. Indicate, impose, or implement an age requirement, whether minimum or maximum or a given range, as a condition for qualification to submit an application for employment or be considered for employment, provided that it shall be acceptable for the employer to require minimum number of years of work experience. And 2. Print or publish or cause to be printed or published in any form of media, including internet, any notice of advertisement relating to employment or any classification or relating to any classification or referral for employment by such an employer suggesting preferences, limitations, specifications, and discrimination based on age. B. It shall be unlawful for an employer to request from a contractor individuals of a certain age bracket or to request an employment agency or recruitment center to only refer applicants of a certain age bracket. C. It shall be unlawful for an employer, 1. During the pre-employment phase, 2. Require the declaration of age or birth date during the application process, provided that it shall not be unlawful to the extent that the employer verifies without prejudice that the job applicant is of legal age. And B. Refuse to hire any individual or otherwise discriminate against any individual because of age. 2. During employment, to withhold a promotion or deny any employment of opportunities, any employee of opportunities for trainings merely because of the individual's age. D. It shall be unlawful for an employment agency or recruitment center to refuse to refer for employment or otherwise discriminate against any individual because of such person's age. E. It shall be unlawful for a labor organization to 1. Deny membership to any individual because of his/her age. 2. Exclude from its membership any individual because of the individual's age. And 3. Cause or attempt to cause an employer to discriminate against an individual in violation of this act. I submit, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On page 3, line 31, delete the word reasonably and change it to reasonable and. I submit.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On the same page, line 33, after the word age, insert, comma, and the phrase subject to existing laws and the guidelines issued by the Tripartite Industrial Peace Council established by Republic Act No. 10395, the CSC and civil society organizations which have experience and proven track record in uplifting the rights of workers.
Approved.
On the same page, line 36, after the semicolon, insert the word end.
Approved.
On the same page, delete lines 38 to 41.
Approved.
On the same page, delete lines 43 to 44 and replace it with C. The case is covered by one of the exceptions under our appropriate regulations issued by the Secretary of Labor based on objective justification to attain a legitimate aim, including the health, welfare, and safety of the individual and or the larger public and the particular training requirements of the job, taking into consideration appropriate and relevant scientific studies, advancements and developments in technologies, and the output of the consultations with the Tripartite Industrial Peace Council, the CSC, and other relevant stakeholders. I submit.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On the same page, line 46, after Dole, insert the phrase, and the CSC where applicable.
Approved.
On the same page, line 47, after the word investigate, insert comma and the phrase conduct administrative proceedings.
Approved.
On the same page, delete lines 51 to 57 and replace it with Section 11, Criminal Liability. The commission of any of the prohibited acts under Section 8A and Section 8B is punishable with a fine of not less than 20,000 pesos, parentheses 20,000 in numbers, close parentheses, but not more than 200,000 pesos, open parentheses 200,000 pesos in numbers, close parentheses, and or imprisonment of not less than number 2 in numbers in numerical form, close parentheses, months, but not more than 2, open close parentheses, the number 2 years, to wit. First offense, fine of 20,000 pesos, open close parentheses, the numbers 20,000 pesos, to 50,000 pesos, open parentheses, 50,000 pesos in numerical form, close parentheses. Second offense, fine of 50,000 pesos, open parentheses, 50,000 pesos in numbers, close parentheses, to 100,000 pesos, open parentheses, 100,000 pesos in figures, close parentheses, and or imprisonment of 2, open close parentheses, the number 2 months, to 1, open close parentheses, number 1 year. Third offense, fine of 100,000 pesos, open parentheses, the figure 100,000 pesos, close parentheses, to 200,000 pesos, open parentheses, the figure 200,000 pesos, close parentheses, and or imprisonment of 1, open close parentheses, the number 1 year, to 2, open close parentheses, the number 2 years. If the offense is committed by a corporation, trust, firm, partnership, or association or other entity, the penalty shall be imposed upon the guilty officer or officers of such corporation, trust, firm, partnership, or association or entity. I submit.
Approved.
On the same page, after line 57, insert the following section to read as Section 12, Other Liabilities. The commission of any of the prohibited acts under Section 8C1 and Section 8D not arising from employer-employee relations shall be under the jurisdiction of the appropriate courts for the recovery of civil liabilities.
Approved.
Section 13. Proceedings before labor arbiters. The commission of any of the prohibited acts under Section 8C, 2 shall be under the original and exclusive jurisdiction of the labor arbiter and the National Labor Relations Commissions, open parentheses, NLRC, close parentheses, for claims for actual, moral, exemplary, and other forms of damages arising from employer-employee relations. The aggrieved party shall be granted damages and any other relief as may deemed equitable. Section 14, Administrative Proceedings. The commission of any of the prohibited acts under Section 8E shall be under the administrative jurisdiction of the DOLE and the CSC where applicable. Section 15, Implementing Rules and Regulations. The DOLE and the CST shall within 180, open parentheses, the figure 180, close parentheses, days from the effectivity of this act, jointly promulgate the necessary implementing rules and regulations to carry out the provisions of this act. I submit.
Yes. The chair has a question.
Yes, Mr. President.
On Section 13, you granted to the labor arbiters original and exclusive jurisdiction for claims of actual, moral, and exemplary damages arising from employer-employee relation, where the discrimination takes place in the hiring and therefore precisely before the employer-employee relationship is established. Who has jurisdiction?
The courts, Mr. President, we have that in section, I believe it's a section before it. Let me just
for
yes,
the record. So
we differentiated, Mr. President. In the hiring process, it would be the civil courts, Mr. President.
Okay.
Section 12, I believe.
All right.
That's all, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
I just to renumber the succeeding sections accordingly, Mr. President.
So renumbered.
That is all, Mr. President. There are no other individual amendments.
Move to close, Mr. President. Move to close, Mr. President.
Close. Approve.
Move to approve on second reading, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill number 29, under Committee Report number 38, is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of the measure.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders the following. A. House Bill 6011 under Committee Report 450. B. House Bills 5601 under Committee Report 451. House Bill 6005 under Committee Report 452. House Bill 6193 under Committee Report 453. House Bill 6314 under Committee Report 454. House Bill 6312 under Committee Report 455. House Bill 6168 under Committee Report 457. House Bill 2185 under Committee Report 458. House Bill 6003 under Committee Report 459. House Bill 6315 under Committee Report 460. House Bill 6313 under Committee Report 461.
These are all franchise bills.
Yes, Mr. President.
Any objection? So, hearing none, so transferred.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on second reading under one omnibus sponsorship the House bills enumerated as reported out under the respective committee report.
Before we act on the motion, 1 minute suspension. Sinasabi niya?
Hindi pa na-refer?
Huh? What did that?
For franchise, they're all franchise.
Committee report there on this? On this?
Senator Serge. I don't know, boss. I don't know who owns. Pero hindi pa rin. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I withdraw my earlier motions regarding the committee reports. In order to facilitate our business, I move that we have an additional reference of business, Mr.
All
President.
right. To follow the proper procedure, we first have the reference of business and calendar the report, the committee report, in the calendar for ordinary business. Please proceed.
Committee reports. Committee report number 448, prepared and submitted jointly with the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Health and Demography on Senate Bill number 3204, with Senators Sonny Angara and Cayetano Pia as authors thereof, entitled An Act Requiring Basic Education Students to Undergo AIDS-Appropriate Basic Life Support Training, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate Bill number 3016, taking into consideration House Bill number 6204, sponsor Senator Cayetano Pia.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
449, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance on Senate Bill number 3205 with Senators Sonny Angara, Ligarda, and Cayetano P. as authors thereof, entitled An Act Mandating the Integration of Filipino-Muslim and Indigenous Peoples' History, Culture, and Identity and the Study of Philippine History in both basic and higher education, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate Bill numbers 2474, 2685, taking into consideration House Bill number 4832, sponsor Senator Cayetano Pia. Committee Report number 450, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 6011, introduced by Representative Robes et al., an act granting Veritas Media Arts, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcasting stations in the province of Bohol and the Visayas, recommending its approval without amendment. Sponsor Senator Osmeña III. 451, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 5601 by Representatives Apostol and Teodoro, an act extending to another 25 years the franchise granted to the Philippine Telegraph and Telephone Corporation, PTNT, to establish, install, maintain, and operate wire and or wireless telecommunication systems, lines, circuits, and stations throughout the Philippines for public, domestic, and international communications under Republic Act 4161 as amended, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Osmeña III, sponsor. 452, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 6005 by Representatives Agabo and Teodoro, an act granting the Infiniban, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems throughout the Philippines, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Osmeña III, sponsor. 453, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 6193 by Representative Lagdameo et al., entitled An Act Renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Kalayaan Broadcasting System Incorporated under Republic Act number 7303 as amended by Republic Act number 8105, entitled An Act Granting the Kalayaan Broadcasting System Incorporated the franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain radio broadcasting stations in the island of Mindanao and for other purposes, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Osmeña III, sponsor. 454, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 6314 by Representatives Gonzales and Teodoro, an act granting the Mega Manila Telecom Corp. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication system throughout the Philippines, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Osmeña III, sponsor. 455, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 6312 by Representatives Bayologo and Teodoro, an act granting the Metro Connections and Telecom Corp. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication system throughout the Philippines, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Osmeña III, sponsor. 456, by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill 5570 by Representatives Mendoza and Teodoro, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Ibaan Electric Corporation to construct, operate, and maintain an electric light, heat, and power system in the municipality of Ibaan, province of Batangas, under RA 7578, recommending its approval without amendment by Senator Osmeña III. 457, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 6168 by Representatives Madrona and Teodoro, an act amending the franchise granted to Buyers Communications, Inc. under Republic Act number 8107, expanding its scope into national coverage and renewing its term for another 25 years, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Osmeña III, sponsor. 458, with the same committee on House Bill number 2185, introduced by Representative Abu et al., an act granting the First Bay Power Corporation, FBPC, a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain a distribution system for the conveyance of electric power to the end users in the municipality of Bawan, province of Batangas, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Osmeña III, sponsor. 459, submitted by the same committee on 6003, introduced by Representatives Ibardone and Teodoro, an act granting the AMA Telecommunications, Inc. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems in the Philippines, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Peña III, sponsor. 460, an act submitted by Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 6315, introduced by Representatives Biologo and Chidoro, an act granting the Filipinas Radio Waves Corp franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and or television broadcasting stations throughout the Philippines, recommending its approval without amendment. 461, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill 6313, by Representatives Gonzales and Chidoro, an act granting the Makinig Network, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and or television broadcasting stations throughout the Philippines, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Peña III, sponsor. 462, prepared and submitted by the Committee on Foreign Relations on PS Resolution 1725, concurring in the ratification of the agreement between the Government of the Republic of the Philippines and the Government of the Republic of Indonesia concerning the delimitation of the exclusive economic zone boundary, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Marks, sponsor. 463, submitted jointly with the Committees on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs and National Defense and Security on Senate Bill 2139 by Senator Grace Poe, an act amending certain section of Republic Act number 4200, otherwise known as an act to prohibit and penalize wiretapping and other related violations of the privacy of communication and for other purposes, recommending its approval with amendments taking into consideration Senate Bill number 67 and House Bill number 6107, sponsor Senator Poe. 464, prepared and submitted by the Committees on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality on Senate Bill 3209 with Senator Cayetano Pia as authors thereof, an act providing stronger measures against unlawful practices, businesses, and schemes of matching and offering Filipinos to foreign nationals for purposes of marriage, of common law partnership, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 6955, also referred to as the Anti-Mail Order Bride Law, recommending its approval and substitution of House Bill number 5572, Senator Cayetano Pia, sponsor. 465, submitted jointly with the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance on Senate Bill number 2768, introduced by Senator Gingona III and entitled An Act Upgrading the Amay Pakpak Medical Center in Marawi City, Lanao del Sur, and appropriating funds therefore recommending its approval with amendments taking into consideration House Bill number 5436, Senator Gingona III, sponsor. 466, submitted jointly with the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance on House Bill number 1001, introduced by Representative Barcelona Reyes, an act providing for the establishment of a district hospital in the municipality of Santa Elena, province of Camarines Norte, and appropriating funds therefore recommending its approval without amendments. Senator Gingona III, sponsor. 467, by the Committees on Health and Demography, Ways and Means and Finance on Senate Bill number 3210, with Senators Marcos Jr., Ercito Estrada, Santiago and Gingona III as authors thereof, an act integrating palliative and hospice care into the Philippine health care system, recommending its approval and substitution of Senate Bill numbers 417, 1531, 2284, and 308. Senator Gingona III, sponsor. 468, submitted by the Committees on Health and Demography, Ways and Means and Finance on House Bill number 5746 of Representative Waminal, an act converting the Mayor Hilarion A. Ramiro Sr. Regional Training and Teaching Hospital in the province of Misamis Occidental into a medical center to be known as the Mayor Hilarion A. Ramiro Sr. Medical Center, recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Gingona, sponsor. 469, submitted jointly by the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance on Senate Bill number 2692, introduced by Senator Drilon, entitled An Act Establishing the Surgeon General Hospital in the Municipality of Suralia, Province of the South Cotabato, and appropriating funds therefore recommending its approval with amendments taking into consideration 5433, sponsor Senator Gingona III.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
470, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House Bill number 5942 by Representative Agabao et al., an act amending and extending for 25 years the franchise granted to Smart Communications, Inc., formerly Smart Information Technologies, Inc., under Republic Act Number 7294, entitled An Act Granting Smart Information Technologies Inc. Smart a franchise to establish, install, maintain, lease, and operate integrated telecommunications, computer, electronic services, and stations throughout the Philippines for public, domestic, and international telecommunication to other purposes, recommending its approval without amendment. Sponsor Senator Osmeña III.
To the calendar for their business. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer the bills stated earlier in an earlier motion from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders, with the addition of House Bill 5942 under Committee Report 470, Mr. President. So moved.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on second reading under one's omnibus sponsorship the House bills enumerated as reported out under the respective committee reports.
Any objection? Hearing none. The consolidated sponsorship of the bills under consideration will be allowed.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the titles of the proposed bills without prejudice to inserting into the record the whole text thereof.
Secretary will do so.
House Bill Number 6011, an act granting Veritas Media Arts Inc. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcast stations in the province of Bohol and the Visayas. House Bill Number 5601, an act extending to another 25 years the franchise granted to the Philippine Telegraph and Telephone Corporation (PTNT) to establish, install, maintain, and operate wire and/or wireless telecommunication systems, lines, circuits, and stations throughout the Philippines for public, domestic, and international communications under RA number 4161 as amended. House Bill number 6005, an act granting the Infinivan Inc. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication system throughout the Philippines. House Bill number 6193, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Kalayaan Broadcasting System Inc. under RA 7303 as amended by RA 8105, entitled An Act Granting the Kalayaan Broadcasting System Incorporated a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain radio broadcasting stations in the island of Mindanao and for other purposes. House Bill number 6314, an act granting the Mega Manila Telecom Corp a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems throughout the Philippines. House Bill number 6312, an act granting the Metro Connections and Telecom Corp a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems throughout the Philippines. House Bill number 6168, an act amending the franchise granted to Buyers Communications Inc. under Republic Act number 8107, expanding its scope into a national coverage and renewing its term for another 25 years. House Bill number 2185, an act granting the First Bay Power Corporation, FBPC, a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain a distribution system for the conveyance of electric power to the end users in the municipality of Bawan, province of Batangas. House Bill number 6003, an act granting the AMA Telecommunications Inc. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems in the Philippines. House Bill number 6315, an act granting the Pilipinas Radio Waves Corporation a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and/or television broadcasting stations throughout the Philippines. House Bill number 6313, an act granting the Makinig Network Inc. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and/or television broadcasting stations throughout the Philippines. And House Bill number 5942, an act amending and extending for 25 years the franchise granted to Smart Communications Inc., formerly Smart Information Technologies Inc., under Republic Act number 7294, entitled An Act Granting Smart Information Technologies Inc. Smart a franchise to establish, install, maintain, lease, and operate integrated telecommunications / computer / electronic services and stations throughout the Philippines and for public, domestic, and international telecommunications and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Osmeña to sponsor the measures.
Senator Osmeña is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to present for the Senate's approval the granting of 8 new franchise applications and the renewal of term for another 25 years of 4 more Philippine companies whose applications are contained in the following House bills. Number 1, House Bill number 2185, covered by Committee Report 458, entitled Granting the First Bay Power Corporation a franchise to construct, install, maintain, establish, operate, and maintain a distribution system for the conveyance of electric power to the end users in the municipality of Bawan, province of Batangas, introduced by Representatives Abu, Mendoza, Colliantes, and Teodoro. Number 2, House Bill number 6011, covered by Committee Report 450, entitled An Act Granting Veritas Media Art, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcast stations in the province of Bohol and the Visayas, introduced by Representatives Robes, Teodoro, Salvacion, et al. Number 3, House Bill number 6003, covered by Committee Report 459, entitled An Act Granting the AMA Telecommunications, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems in the Philippines, introduced by Representatives Evardone and Teodoro. Number 4, House Bill number 6312, covered by Committee Report 455, entitled An Act Granting the Metro Connection and Telecom Corporation a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems throughout the Philippines, introduced by Representatives Yolago and Teodoro. Number 5, House Bill number 6313, covered by Committee Report 461, entitled An Act Granting the Makinig Network, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and or television broadcasting stations throughout the Philippines, introduced by Representatives Gonzales and Teodoro. Number 6, House Bill number 6314, covered by Committee Report 454, entitled An Act Granting the Mega Manila Telecom Corporation a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems throughout the Philippines, introduced by Representatives Gonzales and Teodoro. Number 7, House Bill number 6315, under Committee Report 460, entitled An Act Granting the Pilipinas Radio Waves Corporation a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and or television stations throughout the Philippines, introduced by Representatives Yolago and Teodoro. Number 8, House Bill number 6005, covered by Committee Report 452, entitled An Act Granting the Infiniban, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems throughout the Philippines, introduced by Representatives Agabao and Teodoro. And for renewal, number 9, House Bill number 5942, covered by Committee Report 470, entitled An Act Amending and Extending for 25 years the franchise granted to Smart Communications, Inc., formerly Smart Information Technologies, Inc., under Republic Act 7294, entitled An Act Granting Smart Information Technologies, Inc., or SMART in parentheses, a franchise to establish, install, maintain, lease, and operate integrated telecommunications/computer/electronic services and stations throughout the Philippines for public, domestic, and international telecommunications and for other purposes, introduced by Representatives Agabao, Yolago, and Teodoro. Number 10, House Bill number 6193, under Committee Report 453, entitled An Act Renewing for Another 25 Years the franchise granted to Kalayaan Broadcasting System, Incorporated, under Republic Act 7303 as amended by Republic Act 8105, entitled An Act Granting the Kalayaan Broadcasting System, Incorporated, a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain radio broadcasting systems in the island of Mindanao and for other purposes, introduced by Representatives Lagdameo Teodoro et al. Number 11, House Bill Number 5601, covered by Committee Report 451, entitled An Act Extending for another 25 years the franchise granted to Philippine Telegraph and Telephone Corporation, or PT&T in parentheses, to establish, install, maintain, and operate wire and/or wireless telecommunication systems, lines, circuits, and stations throughout the Philippines for public, domestic, and international communications under Republic Act 4161 as amended, introduced by Representatives Apostol and Teodoro. Number 12, House Bill Number 6168, covered by Committee Report 457, entitled An Act Amending the Franchise Granted to Buyers Communications, Inc., under Republic Act Number 8107, expanding its scope into national coverage and renewing its term for another 25 years, introduced by Representatives Madrona and Teodoro. Mr. President, your Committee on Public Services has examined and evaluated the pertinent documentary requirements submitted by the applicants, such as their audited financial statements, permit to operate, latest general information sheets, and company profiles, and found them to have complied with the requirements prescribed by the Constitution and other relevant laws, rules, and regulations. During the committee hearing, the National Telecommunications Commission, or the NTC, and the Energy Regulatory Commission, the ERC, expressed their support of the passage of these measures. Said endorsements by the NTC and the ERC have been given important consideration by the committee, since these are primary government agencies mandated to supervise and regulate the operations of the applicants in their respective industries. The committee has likewise verified that the applicants have complied with the ownership and management requirements for the operation of public utilities and mass media under the 1987 Constitution. The relevant constitutional provisions read as follows. 1. For public utilities, Section 11 of Article 12 requires that no franchise certificate or any other form of authorization for the operation of a public utility shall be granted except to citizens of the Philippines or to corporations and associations organized under the laws of the Philippines, at least 60% of whose capital is owned by such citizens. 2. For mass media, Section 11, Paragraph 1 of Article 16 states that the ownership and management of mass media shall be limited to citizens of the Philippines or to corporations, cooperatives, or associations wholly owned and managed by such citizens. The Constitution further imposes a condition that any franchise or right granted is subject to amendment, alteration, or repeal by Congress when the common good so requires. This provision is expressly incorporated in each franchise to address any unforeseen event that may require the intervention of the state to protect the public interest. Thus, the approval of the aforementioned House bills as amended by the Senate is earnestly sought. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Osmani. Majority Leaders. We suspend.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill Number 6011, 5601, 6005, 6193, 6314, 6312, 6168, 2185, 6003, 6315, 6313, under Committee Reports Number 450, 451, 452, 453, 454, 455, 457, 458, 459, 460, and 461.
And House Bill 5942.
And House
This
Bill...
is smart communication.
Okay, Mr. President.
So consideration of measures are suspended.
Thank you.
With the provision of the chamber, we suspend for 1 minute.
Make it fast. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 3209 under Committee Report 464 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Okay na ito. Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill 3209 under Committee Report 464 is transferred from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 3209, an act providing stronger measures against unlawful practices, businesses, and schemes of matching and offering Filipinos to foreign nationals for purposes of marriage or common law partnership, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 6955, also referred to as the Anti-Mail Order Bride Law.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we recognize this representation to deliver the sponsorship speech.
The acting majority leader, Senator Pia Cayetano, is recognized to sponsor the measure, Senate Bill 3209.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is the anti-mail order bill, which seeks to protect Filipinos from marriages to foreigners. I move to submit my sponsorship speech into the record, Mr. President.
All right. The sponsorship speech is considered as read into the record.
Thank you. I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 3209 under Committee Report
So
number
suspended.
464. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer House Bill number 2817 under Committee Report number 446 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill number 2817 under Committee Report 446 is transferred from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider House Bill number 2817 under Committee Report 446.
Any objection? Hearing none. So considered.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 2817, an act separating the Cagasat National High School Magsaysay Annex in Barangay Magsaysay, Municipality of Cordon, Province of Isabela, from the Cagasat National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Cordon National High School and operating funds, therefore.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we recognize this representation to sponsor the measure.
Senator Cayetano is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I will submit to the Secretariat a copy of my sponsorship speech and ask that it be read into the record.
The sponsorship speech is read into the record of this afternoon's session.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 2817 under Committee Report 446.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer House Bill number 6144 under Committee Report number 447 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none. So transferred.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider House Bill number 6144 under Committee Report number 447.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the bill.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 6144, act establishing the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines, USTSP, providing for the purpose the amalgamation of the Mindanao University of Science and Technology, MUST, and the Misamis Oriental State College of Agriculture and Technology, NMOSCAT, and appropriating funds, therefore.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize this representation to sponsor the measure.
Senator Cayetano is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Mr. President, I shall submit a copy of my sponsorship speech and ask that it be read into the record.
The sponsorship speech is considered as read into the record.
Thank you. I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 6144 under Committee Report number 447.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 3204 under Committee Report number 448 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none.
With the permission of the Senate,
Consideration, the Senate Bill 3204 is transferred to the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider the Senate Bill number 3204 under Committee Report number 448.
In order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 3204, not requiring basic education students to undergo age-appropriate basic life support training.
I move that we recognize this representation to sponsor the measure.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Mr. President, I submit a copy of my sponsorship speech and ask that it be read into the records.
The sponsorship speech is read into the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 3204 under Committee Report number 448.
So suspended.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 3205 under Committee Report number 449 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none. The Senate Bill 3205 is transferred from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 3205 under Committee Report number 449.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 3205, an act mandating the integration of Filipino Muslim and indigenous peoples' history, culture, and identity in the study of Philippine history in both basic and higher education.
I move that we recognize this representation to sponsor the measure.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized to sponsor Senate Bill 3205.
Mr. President, I move that my sponsorship speech be read into the record.
The sponsorship speech of Senator Cayetano is considered read into the records.
I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 3205 under Committee Report number 449.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, there is no other matter on the agenda. I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, February 3, 2016.
Session is adjourned until 3 p.m. of Wednesday, February 3, 2016.